Okay, so once again, a very good evening to all. Uh, so we have about 12 participants in this call. All right, so we are into the week 2 now, and this is basically the first live session for week 2. Well, since we are just on Tuesday right now, the content was released on Friday. May I know that how many of you have completed watching the week 2 lectures? You can simply raise your hands if you are done with those. Okay, half of it. Okay, is there anyone who has completed watching those lectures? Okay, looks like no one yet. Well, is there anyone who has started solving the activity or practice-based questions for week 2 for whatever content they have watched so far?
Yes, sir. I have watched all the lectures and I have solved the activity questions.
Okay, great, nice to see that. Sorry, just a minute. Okay, so yeah, looks like many of you have still not gone through all of the lectures. So again, the purpose or the agenda of today's session is basically to walk you through all of the activity and practice-based questions that are available for this week, that is week 2. Well, before that, I would like to know that if any one of you is having any doubts from the previous week, that means from week 1, is there any question from activity or practice category, or even the programming assignment for which you still have a doubt? Were you all able to solve the programming assignment for week 1? That simple and compound interest problem? Okay, working on it.
Sir, I'm having some doubt regarding validation of the date.
Okay.
Do we need to separate out the 3 fields and check everything? Means the date should be between 0 to 31 and month should be between 1 to 12 and year should be some range. Do we need to go with that like this, or?
Yeah, that would be the ideal way. But basically the values that we are passing from the backend, they are not that bad. So you can expect that at least these things would be present. But yeah, it's okay. Means it is completely fine if you put those validations there.
And really sir, there is some shortcut. There is a ready-made function called get time. The date is valid, it gives the date, get time, the current time. So can we use that trick? Is it possible?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, you can do whatever way is possible, right? Whatever way seems to be easiest for you, you can go with that.
Fine, sir. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, anyone having any other issues from week 1, activity, practice, or programming assignment?
Sir, can you show with an example the when the const object is modified, like in which cases a const object can be modified, like in dictionary or in list, that portion?
Sorry, I'm not sure. But sorry, I couldn't. Was not able to get your question completely. Sorry.
Okay, if we declare with late, if we declare a variable with late, then we can like further modify it. But we can, if we declare it with const, like as constant, then we cannot further modify it in numbers or strings. But in case of dictionary and list, we modify it.
So, sure. So what you are doing is basically you are making the reference of it constant. That means there is some memory that is allocated to that variable, and now you are not supposed to change that memory reference. You can go to that memory location and can change or alter those values, but you just cannot change the reference. That means you cannot use an assignment operator.
Is it true for any iterable, like list, set, dictionary, everything?
Yeah, definitely you can.
Okay.
Okay, I guess, I just remember that thing. So in the last session, we were actually talking about 2 things. One is const and let keywords. The other one is basically the where keyword. So we were trying to understand the differences between these two categories as the two new keywords, that is const and let. They were introduced in the ES6 version. They were not available in the previous ES5, and where keyword was there. And then we basically talked about a concept called hosting. So what it means is that it puts the declaration of all of the variables on the top of their scopes. But the way it works is basically different for const and let, and basically for the where. So there are two different categories. One is const let, the other one is where, and the behavior of hosting is different in both of those. I'm not saying that the hosting doesn't happen in case of const and let. It does, but you cannot still access those variables until the code execution phase has reached the declaration or the initialization statement. Maybe I'll just try to share my screen. That would be more easier. Share. Can someone please confirm if my screen is visible?
Yes, sir. Screen is visible, sir.
Thanks.
Yes, sir.
So I'll just open. I guess I created this folder last time. Let's see. Okay, these are two empty files. I'll just quickly write some template.
So what is the right place to mention script position, in head or in body?
Well, you can mention it at any place wherever you want, but yeah, it's a good practice to basically put it inside head. But if there are some things, or you are trying to manipulate your DOM, so of course it's better that you put it after body.
But that should come in end, no? That should be at last or should be at top.
Sorry, I
The
didn't get
statement
it.
for script. Suppose inside body I'm writing few statements, some divs are there, some IDs are specified.
Mhm.
Those IDs are being modified or accessed in the script.
Yeah,
So
sure.
shall I
It's
write
better
this
you put
script?
it at the end of the body.
Okay, so got it. Thank you, sir.
Okay. So what I was doing there is I have created one index. I have created one JavaScript file. What will I do is I'll simply open it in the browser. I'll use an extension, VS Code extension called Live Server. So it will host my website on port 5500. So what I'm going to do here right now is I am going to create one variable, let's say variable A, and I'm going to initialize it with 10. But before actually initializing it, what I'm going to do is I'm going to write console.log, and I'm going to write A here. Well, would anyone of you would like to guess that what's going to be the output of this script?
It will be undefined, sir.
It will be undefined. How can you say that?
We are printing the value A before initializing it. So on second line, we are creating a variable A.
Yeah, but the
assigning
thing is that
value to it.
you have created the variable at line number 2. Is it possible to
Yes.
access that at line number 1?
No, but still we can write console.log A. It will consider that variable A is somewhere, but that is not having any value, so it's undefined.
And in that case, in the case that the script is being shown now,
Still, it will be undefined.
are you sure?
It will show errors, sir.
I think so.
In
Correct,
both the
correct, yeah.
cases.
Sorry, can you repeat?
Not in both cases. In first case it will show undefined. Second, I'm not sure.
Yeah, correct. So basically what happens in this case is you are trying to access a variable called A, and there is nothing called A in the current scope, right? In the scope in which this statement is being used. But the moment you basically uncomment this line number 2, so what happens is we talked about a concept called hosting. In case any one of you has missed the session, I would suggest them to just have a quick look at the previous live session that we had on Saturday, or let me just try to give you a quick overview or a brief that what actually hosting means. So hosting basically means is to put the declaration of all of the variables onto the top of their scopes. That means if, let's say, I have created 10 variables in the current scope, they all are available in the current scope. That means I do not create any function, I do not create any local scopes, they all are available outside of all of the functions. So what will happen is that their declarations, please note this statement, only their declarations will be moved to the top of this file. For example, if I'll tell you that what happens in this case, if I will try to run this program, what will happen is the program.
Good evening. I think audio is not coming properly. I can't hear a thing.
Audio is good, sir.
It's clear, sir. It's clear.
Pimblish, is it possible for you to reconnect? I guess there seems to be some issue with your end. Bhavya, you have raised your hand. I just noticed it.
Yes, sir. I had a question regarding this concept that you're explaining right now.
Yeah.
So the declaration of variables is moved up by the compiler.
Yeah, JavaScript engine. Yes.
Okay, sir. Got it. Thank you. So this would be dependent on every browser, right? Like if you're running it in a browser, then depending on what JS engine a browser is running, there could be a change, right?
I would say that they would remain same across all of the browsers. That's why we are following the standard called ES6.
Okay, sir. Got it.
So the whole purpose of it is basically to maintain the code.
Got it, sir. Thank you.
Sir, I wanted to know, in order to run this JavaScript file, we are using Node.js in background.
No, we will be using. We will be running it on
browser. Okay, and my question is that now here, suppose I'm running it on browser and I'm declaring console.log as a first statement, then where a is equal to 10. How does it come to know that a has a definition on the next lines and next coming line? And if I don't mention it, then it shows error that you said. How it is identified that that declaration is there in the upcoming lines or not?
Okay, so I hope you basically understand the difference between compiler and interpreters, right? That basically turns down the discussion into a separate, into a completely.
That I understand, but which compiler we are using in case of browser? If I want to.
So it depends on the browser that which JavaScript engine that browser is basically running. So in case if I talk about Chrome, so Chrome uses V8 JavaScript engine. I'm using Edge, so I'm sure that Edge uses Chakra. For Mozilla Firefox, if I'm not wrong, I guess it uses SpiderMonkey. Yeah. If we talk about some backends or some some other environments, let's say Node.js, it also uses V8. There might be some other JavaScript engines as well. So yeah, it depends on the browser.
Yes, that's clear now, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. So what I was basically trying to explain here is, let me just comment this statement. So the moment you just write these two lines, that is line number 2 and line number 3, and you try to execute this program. So what will happen is that since this variable has been declared in this scope, I'm talking about variable A, but the thing is that it is being declared or it is being initialized at line number 3. But what JavaScript engine will do is it will move the declaration. Remember, it will just move the declaration. It won't move the initialization. It will move the declaration to the top of their scope. Right now we are, in this scope itself, there is no other scope available in this program. So what will happen is that wherever my first line of the program is being, is starting, so those declarations will be put before that state. That means JavaScript engine will, do it or will write this line of code for me. That means the X has already been declared, and that is the reason. Sorry, it should be A. And that is the reason that I would be able to access the value of A. Well, again, I want to be able to access the original value, that is 10, that I want, my variable A to have it in my program. But here, if I'm trying to access it before line number 3, I will always get A. Undefined. If I am using var, if I am using let and const, there is a different story. We'll cover it. But let me just show you that how does it. Okay, so I'll just delete this statement. I know that this is going to print undefined, and most of you already know in case you have watched the previous live session that we had on Saturday. What will I do is I'll simply go live. So you can see that it has basically started a local host server for me, which is hosted at port number 5500. I'll go to inspect and I'll go to the sources tab. So in the sources tab, you can see that I have 3 lines of code in this index.js. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to use the browser debugger here. So what I'm doing is I'm going to put a debugger at line number 2. Let me just remove this line number 3. So what I'm basically doing here is I'm putting a breakpoint. That means the moment I'll try to refresh this page, again, the JavaScript has to be loaded and to be executed. But in case I have put a breakpoint here, so what will happen is that any code written before that breakpoint will be executed, but any code written after that breakpoint, that would not be executed. That would be paused. And here are some controls that is basically Edge provides us. So I'm using Edge browser. If you are using some different browsers, there might be some different controls depending on which browser you are using. So these are some of the controls that I can basically make use of. So what I have done is I have put the breakpoint here. You can even see this in the, in this drop down that I have put one breakpoint. In case I want to put 2, I can do it, right? So I'll just put 1 here, and now I will refresh this page. So see, if I have put breakpoint at line number 2, that means the line number 2 will also not be executed. That means I have put breakpoint even before my JavaScript file has started executing. That means the code execution phase will be paused, but the memory allocation will be completed. That means whatever variables are available in my program, the memory will be allocated to all of those variables, just that the code execution phase will not begin until and unless I ask my browser to use. So I have put the breakpoint. I'll quickly refresh this page. So see, I have refreshed this page. You can see that this file is basically loading. The reason is that JavaScript has not successfully executed, so that's why it will keep loading. You can even see that paused on breakpoint. And now these options are also enabled for me. So what will I do is I'll try to execute this code line by line using this step. But before that, I want to show you one. The moment I execute, okay, let me just do one thing. I'll just, so I have again, completed the execution of this script. Right now, you can see that this scope and this call stack, both of these, what I should say, basically drop down, they both are empty, right? Scope and call stack. That the breakpoint is still active at line number 2. I'll again do a refresh. Again, you can see that this file keeps loading. But this moment, what you can see is that we are getting this global, something like global under the scope dropdown, right? So what is this global is going to tell us basically that what all variables and functions are basically available for us, or that means that are basically available in the memory for us to use. The moment I expand this global, you will see that we have a variable name called A, which is initialized with undefined. Now, as I told you, that the first line of the program has not even been executed yet, but we still can see that there is something called A variable that exists in the global scope and which is initialized with the value undefined. That is the reason that when I will ask my browser to execute this statement 2, that is just asking to take the value of A and just dump it onto the console. The moment I'll run it, it will basically dump undefined on my screen or on my console. Right? I hope you are getting the idea, because the memory has already been allocated and by default it's been initialized with a value called undefined. So that is why if I click on this step, before that I would like to show you the console. The console is empty as of now. The moment I click on this step, this line has now been executed. You would see that the console has printed undefined, but still, if I would like to show you on the top, that A is still undefined. The reason, because the code execution has basically executed the line number 2, but line number 3 is still pending. I need to click on this button once again in order to execute this line. So the moment I will click on it, you will observe a change in the value of A here. So now if I'll again navigate to the top, you would see that the value of A has now been changed to 10. And now if you will start, or if you will try to use the value of A at any place after line number 3, you will be getting the value is 10, no undefined any. The reason is that the code execution has reached the initialization statement, and this undefined value has now been replaced with whatever value you provided to the value. This is how it works in the case of where the same things are going to work out in the case of const and let, but there is a slight difference. I'll come on to that. But before that, I would just like to know that if this thing is clear.
Will you please once again show how to get this debugging right from inspecting step once again?
Okay, sure. So I'll just stop it. Okay, I'll close it as well, and I'll stop the live stream. Okay. So you can basically open any IDE, or in case you are using VS Code, you can just follow or code along with me as well, in case you want to. Now, since I have already opened this as a workspace, I have opened this as a project, so I will get an option here called Go Live because I have already installed the extension for that. The moment I'll click on it, it will start the server and will open that site in my browser. Right. After that, what will I do is I will press I'll basically press the right click and I'll go to inspect. The moment I go to inspect, I hope you're all aware that there are different tabs that a developer or web developer basically gets here. There is console, sources, network, performance, memory, application. I hope many of you would have worked with all of these tabs. But I guess sources is something that you might have not looked at earlier in the Med1 course. So what we'll be doing here is we will be coming onto the source tab. Here we will get these two files. One is index.html that is available in our project. The other one is index.js. Right? And this is what the whatever code that we have written inside that file. Now, what you need to do is, since I had put one debugger or breakpoint. The moment I run this script previously, so that's why this breakpoint is still there. I'll remove it after clicking on it once again. So this is basically the phase that you will be expecting in case you are trying to simulate the same in your machines, in your systems. Now, once you are here, what you need to do is you simply need to click on the line number for which on which you want to put a breakpoint. Let's say I want to put it on 2. If you will try to put it on 1, it will be same because there is no code at line number 1. So even if there would be so many other lines, and you will try to put breakpoint here at line number 1, it will automatically do it at line number 4 because there is no other code available. Okay. Now, since I have put the breakpoint, in order for this script to be executed again, what I need to do is I need to refresh this page. So I'll click on refresh. Now, you have successfully put the breakpoint. Basically, one proof of that is that it should be available in the breakpoints drop down here. The other thing is that your file or your web page will keep loading because the JavaScript has still not finished its execution. The reason is that we are not allowing it. Okay. Now, after this, what you can do is you can basically see that this global thing has come up under the scope, and you can see that what all variables have been allocated the memory and what all methods are available for you to use. Then there are some controls. You can read about these controls anywhere or on the Microsoft Docs, that how these works. The most the easiest I would say the control here is basically this tab, which is going to just shift the control from one line to another. There are some shortcuts. For example, this step over next function call. For example, if there are 5 functions that you have defined in your program, and the moment you executed one function, it will basically execute the whole function at once. It won't execute each and every statement of that function while waiting for your order. So what will it do is the moment you click on this control, it will execute the function, the complete function. It won't go step by step, but this step button, it will do it step by step. For example, if there are 5 statements in that function, so it will first execute the first, then will wait for you to press this control button again. The next time you click it, it will again go to the next statement, things like that. Okay, so you can basically explore these things by yourself. I don't think there is anything difficult. Yeah. So now, since in the global, you would see that the memory for variable a has been allocated, and it is initialized with the value undefined, as we had already discussed in one of the sessions that we had earlier. That there are basically 2 phases in which a JavaScript program is executed. The first one is basically the memory execution. Memory allocation. The other one is basically the code execution phase. Right. The first step is also known as variable environment. The other one is known as thread of execution. So in first phase, what happens is that all of the variables that are available in the current scope, the memory for those variables is allocated. All of those variables are basically defined with the value, by default value undefined, and that value will get overwritten once the code execution phase or the thread of execution reaches the initialization for that particular value. So is that thing clear now?
Yes, sir. Sir, what are the reasons that global is not visible under scope?
Sorry, global is not visible under scope. Sorry.
The scope, yeah. So what will be the reason for that? I was
Sorry.
executing parallelly. I'm not able to get this global under scope in age. So is there any possible reason?
You are not getting this global, is it?
Yes. It's not visible.
Are you getting the other drop downs?
Other drop downs is there. Yes.
Are you sure
there.
that you have put the breakpoint at this place?
Yeah, sure. I'm sure.
Is your, is the file being, it is showing this icon, that is loading icon?
No, not. It is not
That
showing
means
the loading
your
icon.
breakpoint, I guess, is not successfully created. Can you just double check
Okay.
if the breakpoint is available in this drop down?
Okay, sir. Yeah, under breakpoints, it's showing the check script.js line number 129 console.log 8. That's it.
Okay. Not sure. Can you just try doing it once again?
Yeah, I will do it again. Otherwise, you can see in last at the end of the session.
Sure. That's
okay.
Yes. Okay. So till now, is every one of you clear that what we had discussed so far?
So what I understand is that at the beginning itself, it scans the entire code block, even though the breakpoint is at the beginning, and wherever there is a variable allocation has to be done in the memory, that happens.
Correct.
So
memory allocation is even done before the first line of your code starts getting executed.
Yes, so that will happen if it scans the entire thing.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
So that is why I didn't wanted to raise this topic, but yeah, that's a complete different discussion. There are things known as JIT compilers. Most of the languages are using this these days. So what happens is that I know that interpreter executes the program line by line, but the compiler basically has the access to the complete program. So JIT compiler is something in between both of those. It's used for optimization purposes. There are so many other things, but I don't want to get into compiler design topic right now. So I would like to skip that. But yeah, you can basically read more about it on the web. You will be able to apprehend it very easily. There is nothing difficult by apprehending that. Okay. Yeah. So I hope the functioning or how the hosting works for where variables declared using where keyword is clear, right?
Yes, sir. This concept is clear, but is it the same with other keywords like late and const?
Yes, it is almost same, but yeah, there is a slight difference. So I would go on that in case everyone is basically have apprehended this and there is no issues.
Okay, and in this case, the global A will get the value 10 only when you resume the code execution, right?
Sorry, can you repeat it?
The global variable A will get the value 10 only when you resume the
correct.
code
Yeah.
execution.
When I'll ask my browser to execute this statement, then only.
Okay.
Okay, so this is what was happening with the where keyword. I am assuming that all of you have understood this. So I would be moving forward with the let and const. Great, Chandrasekhar. Okay, so since you are able to successfully run it, Bhavya, you are still raising your hand. Sorry, I just came back to this tab just now. Are you having any question or you just forgot to lower your hand from last time?
Sir, I had a doubt regarding hoisting itself.
Yeah, please let me know.
Sir, it goes to the top of the entire script or the current scope?
Current scope, not the script. Yeah.
Got it, sir. Thank you so much.
Okay, now I'll make certain changes in my script. So I have just completed the execution of it. What will I do is I'll create one variable with keyword let, and I'll also initialize it with some value, let's say 20. I'm using these semicolons. They are not mandatory, but of course it's still a good practice to use semicolons at the end of your statements for improving the readability of it. Okay, so all right, I guess this change is enough. So what will I do is I'll just stop it once again. I have again, put my breakpoint here at line number 2. That means the memory allocation will happen for these two variables, that is A and B. But Not even a single line of code would be executed before I ask my browser to do so. Okay. Now I'll again refresh my page. So you can see that the breakpoint is available. And now you are getting two things here, right? Under the global scope dropdown, there is one thing called global. The other thing is basically something known as script. So in global, as you would expect, that you will find the variable that is declared using var keyword, that is a, and it is initialized with value undefined. But in script, you will be getting the variables which are defined using let and const keywords. So here, if you will see that we are basically getting b variable, you can see that we have initialized or declared this variable at line number 3. The JavaScript engine has somehow got access to it. It has recognized that there is one variable called b. And again, you can see that it has been initialized with the value undefined. But as it is clear from the screen itself that it is not available in the global scope. It is available in some other scope. Okay. So the moment, or by the time the code execution phase doesn't reach this statement, that is line number 3, you want to be able to access this variable or any variable that is declared using let or const keyword. Let me try to show you that what will happen if you will try to access that variable. You will get an error. Okay, I'll just go here. So I'll move. Now, if you will go back to console, sorry, 1 second. Sources. Okay, sorry, I have printed A itself. It should be B. Can you all please be on mute in case you do not have any question? Yeah, thanks. Okay, so I'll just move to the next. Okay, this is already executed. I'll just pause it and I'll restart it. Okay, so right now on the console, you can see that there is nothing. If I'll step 1 line forward, you will see a message called undefined, because we have printed the value of a variable that is declared using var keyword, and that's why it will be initialized value undefined. Now, if I'll try to click on the step button once again, so what happens is you get an error that reference error cannot access B before initialization. Please note down this error, or read this error very carefully. That cannot access B before initialization. The error is not something like that B is not defined. It is saying that you cannot access B before its initialization. Because what happens is that whenever we declare variables using let and const keywords, they are hosted. The memory for those variables is also allocated, but they are basically kept in a special zone called temporal dead zone by the time the code execution has not reached their declaration or the initialization. I'll repeat my statement that the variables declared using keywords let and const are kept in a special type of zone called temporal dead zone by the time the script execution or the thread of execution phase doesn't reach the declaration or the initialization of those variables. So that's why you are getting this error here. But let's say if I try to separate the initialization and the declaration, what do I mean by this is I'll just create a variable here. I'll say console.log b, and I'll say b equals to 20 here, and again I'll say that console.log b. This is what I'm doing here. So I'll just comment this statement so that it doesn't give any error, and yeah, you're done. So I'll stop it. Let me see if the breakpoint is available. Let me start it. I'll have to complete. Okay, so breakpoint is still there at line number 2. Now I'll again refresh. So the first line, that is the second line number, is not executed yet. I'll click on step. It is executed. So what you would expect on the console, you will expect a message called undefined. Now, if I'll click on step, what will happen is that the let, it will basically be, or I would say that the declaration of this would be reached by the thread of execution. But still, if you will see in the script that B is still undefined. The moment I'll click on step, the B is okay, right? You should be able to access it in your program, but again, the value would be initialized with undefined. So see, right now on the console, you are just seeing one undefined, but if I'll click on the step button once again, you will get two undefined basically. So if I'll come back to the console, you would see two undefined. So why? the variable b has not been initialized yet, but now you are able to access it, but with the value undefined, with the value default, by default that interpreter or the JavaScript engine has provided. Okay. Now in the next step, let me just complete this. Let me just complete this.
Okay.
After that, I'll take your questions. If I'll click on the step button again, now the b has been initialized. So if you will see that script here, that b has now been changed to 20. Previously, the moment before I clicked on this step button, it was undefined. But the moment I clicked on this run button, this line of statement executed, and it basically overridden the value of b from undefined to 20. Now, if I will again click on the step button, it is going to print the value of b. That is going to be 20 on the console. Right now, there is just 2 undefineds. And if I'll click on it, I am going to get 20 here. So this is how things are working with the variables declared using keywords let and const. Yeah, please. I'm okay to take your question now.
Sir, then why in the previous case the error came?
In which case?
In the previous example, you shown that the error came.
If I don't comment this line number 3, that case.
Okay, but it should be like the declaration should be done by the console automatically.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That the memory allocation part is being done the same way, the way it happens for var keyword. Just the thing is that the variables that are declared using these 2 keywords, let and const, they are kept in a special zone called temporal dead zone. So it is basically a region, that starts from the memory allocation part and it ends basically, by the time the code execution has reached the declaration. So that means you cannot access the variables that are declared using const and let before they are declared or initialized, because they are not available to use. They are present in temporal dead zone. They are still available in the memory, but you cannot access.
Okay, got it, sir.
Sir, what is the purpose of having this temporal dead zone? Means after getting the value allocated to this variable, are they still in the same area?
Yeah, correct. You would see that, yeah.
It's still in script.
It is still in the script, yes.
But what is the idea of getting separate?
So there are basically, I hope you understand that what is the whole purpose of introducing these new set of variables, that is let and const. The whole purpose is basically to create block-based scopes.
That is what. It's related to block space. Okay.
Yes.
Yes, clear. Okay, sir.
Okay. Yeah, I'll just stop the complete execution. Okay, so I hope the difference between var and the other 2 keywords, that is const and let, is clear. Shall I assume it?
Yes, sir. So basically, var can be accessed prior to declaration.
Yes.
But let and const cannot be accessed prior to declaration.
Correct. Yes.
Oh, thanks.
But remember, the memory has been allocated to such variables. But again, I would like to mention that phrase once again, that temporal dead zone. Please keep this in your mind, that this is basically a portion which starts from memory allocation and it ends by the time the script execution reaches the declaration or the initialization of that particular variable.
Okay, sir.
So each variable has a separate temporal dead zone.
Okay, sir.
So on start of the script, all variables declared using let and const anywhere in the script are moved to the temporal dead zone, but cannot be accessed until the actual. Yes, correct. Okay, so if that is clear, shall we move on to the next things?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I hope you would have understood the complete concept now, and there will be no more issues. Okay, so I'll just close this, and yeah. So now I'll basically just try to walk you through the activity and practice-based questions.
So there will be some special uses for let versus the var keyword.
Yes, I told you that the entire purpose of introducing these 2 new keywords, that is let and const, is to achieve block-based scoping. So I'm not sure, means if you have basically read that I'm not sure if it was available in week 1 lectures or it is going to become it's going to be introduced in week 2. I'm not sure, but there is basically a concept called global scope and block-based scope, or instead functional scope. Right. So what happens is that whenever you try to declare a variable using var, the scope of that variable is functional. That means it doesn't matter where you have declared that variable. If it is declared outside a function body, you can use it anywhere in your program at any place. But if you have declared it inside a function body, then you cannot use it outside that. That's why I'm saying that functional scope. But if we talk about let and const keywords, so it depends that where these type of variables are declared. If they're declared inside a local scope, you cannot access those variables outside that scope. So I hope you understand that how local scopes can be created, just by using these curly braces.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, it's in week 1. Okay, yeah. To the portal. Okay, so just one thing, I have posted this on Discourse as well. So we have created one, basically heading here called screencast ports under the supplementary contents unit. So this will basically redirect it to a Google Drive folder where you will be getting the access to all of the screencast port bases that you will be seeing in each week. So till now, there are basically a few things. Okay, week 3 has also been published. The lecture has not been released yet, but it's okay. You can get the access to it. Yeah. Okay, so we'll move to week 2 and we'll start with the category 2.1. So I'm hoping that most of you would have at least watched the half of it, as you were even saying in the beginning of this session. So we'll try to see if we can have the maximum participation from till 2.3 lecture category or till 2.3 AQ questions. So yeah, we are on to AQ 2.1. I would be really happy if any one of you volunteers and try to give answers for any of the questions that you.
So option B and C correct for the first one.
Okay, so which one of the following is basically correct for regarding
JavaScript array? It supports different data types and it falls in collection.
Sure, definitely. So what you can do is you can create JavaScript arrays the way you create Python list. This is something similar that you do in JavaScript. So list in Python, they are as simple as arrays in JavaScript. So definitely you can have elements having multiple types in a single array. It can contain elements of different types. Oh, sorry. The first option is basically not correct. The second option is basically the correct one. It can contain elements of different data types. The first one is simply contradicting that statement. The third statement, or the third option says it is a collection. So yes, it is a collection because we are saying that it's having multiple elements. So that's why it is a collection. It cannot have more than one element. Again, it is contradictory to the third option. So that's why second and third options are correct. I hope, yeah, the difference between iterable and iterator, I'm hoping that many of you would have already studied it in Python while studying Python. So iterable is basically something where what you do is you basically go through a sequence. You try to visit each and every element that is present inside a collection. But iterator is basically something that helps you while iterating through an iterable. So whenever you basically try to run a for loop in Python, what actually it does is it creates an iterator for that particular iterable. So iterator basically is a pointer which points to the next element in the collection. Question 2, 1 point.
First and last.
Okay, are these the questions that you want to discuss? Is it?
No, actually, I think that's an answer set.
Oh, okay. These are the answers. Okay, sorry. Yeah. So an iterable is an object whose elements can be accessed sequentially, yes. And an iterator is an object that contains the pointer to the next element. So the other two options, second and third statement, they would be just contradictory of the first and fourth. So what is a callback function? Yes, I guess we have not gone to the practice sessions or the live coding sessions, but let me just try to give you an overview that what happens is, let's say we want to achieve certain functionality with the help of a JavaScript code. Now, what we want to do is, based on certain conditions, or based on whether a certain condition is true or false, we want to invoke different functions in different cases. For example, if a condition is satisfied, is satisfied, I want to call a function called B. If condition C is satisfied, I want to call a function named D. Things like that. So what usually happens is that we pass some of the functions. So JavaScript allows us passing functions as parameters to different functions. This is beauty of the JavaScript, that you can even pass functions as parameters. Now, suppose you pass two callback functions, or just two functions as parameters to one function. And let's say you put the one condition. Let's try to take the easiest example. Say if 2 is greater than 1, then what you would do is just call the first function that you have received as one of the arguments. Or if I'll just open one JavaScript compiler just to give you an overall idea that what I'm talking about. Let's say there is a function called ABC, and it accepts two things. Let's say A and B. There is some body that is associated with this function. I'll tell you that what that body is. And now what I'm doing is I'm calling this function ABC with two different functions, that is A, comma B. Now what these A and B are, just suppose that these are two more different functions. So I'll just create the definitions here. So function A, B, and ABC are three functions that are available inside the current scope. What I'm doing is I am making a call to ABC function. There are two parameters that I'm providing to this function. One is A, the other one is B. Now, what is A in our current scope? A is a function. What is B? B is also a function. Now, inside this function body, let's say I put a condition. If 2 is greater than 1, of course, this condition is going to be true in every case. What I want to do is I want to call this function A. Else, what I want to do is I want to call this function B. Now, of course, you can even provide whatever arguments or parameters you want to. In case you want to have some parameters, you can provide there in the function declaration or in the definition, and accordingly, you can pass those values here. So this is basically the purpose. Or if I'll say that what are callback here? So callbacks are A and B, which are being passed as parameters or as argument to different functions. Okay, I hope you got a basic idea that what callback functions are. We will be using them extensively going forward.
So here, function A and B both are callback.
Yes, they both have callbacks.
So basically, any functions that are passed as arguments are
Callbacks.
functions.
Yes.
Okay.
In case you have finished watching, or half of the week 2 lectures, you would have come across a function called setTimeout. So that itself accepts a callback function. We'll discuss about it in more details, I guess, in week 2 itself when we'll move forward with the other set of functions. So what is a callback function? A function that is passed as an argument to a function. A function that can take function as an argument. So this function is basically not called as a callback function. This is something else. I guess there would be a question based on that in some other set of questions. We'll come on to that. So yeah, it is basically the only correct option. A function that is passed as an argument to a function is known as a callback function. Which of the following is an iterable object? I hope most of you would be able to answer this.
String, array, and set.
Correct. So number is the only thing that is not iterable. So all of these, array, string, and set, they are sequences. So string is basically a sequence of characters. Array is again a sequence or basically a collection of different data types or different elements having different data types. And set is also something that can be used for the same purpose. So which of the following is not a collection? Just the reverse of the previous one.
String.
Yeah, definitely it's a string. So I just mentioned that string is basically a collection, but I won't say that it's a collection. It is basically a sequence, you can say that, but it doesn't come under the category of collections. Apologies for that. Yeah. Okay. So these are the 5 questions that are available in this category. So I'll just see that everything goes right. Yeah.
So it's the same thing. Nah? In Java, we say that string is not a collection of characters. So that's why.
Sorry?
In Java also, we say that string is not a collection of characters. It's not a, we cannot iterate through its characters. It's not collection of characters. That is what generally said in Java.
No. See, it doesn't mean that if it is not a collection, then you cannot iterate over. You can still iterate over.
That's clear. Yes. That we can iterate over. That's true. But
you cannot call it a collection.
We cannot call it
a collection technically.
What I'm saying, the definition is same as that of in Java. Java and JavaScript almost on the same logic.
But in Java, I think we also cannot iterate.
Yeah, that is what. No, but you can go through its characters. Though the string is defined with a group of characters, I can pass through it.
Strings are immutable. You cannot change the value once it is created.
Yes, sir.
In Java, they are immutable.
Yes, correct.
Now, again, what I mean, immutable means that you cannot change a particular character inside that string. If you want, you can even assign a completely different value in case it is not a const. But yeah, you cannot just go over a character or an index and try to change that value. That is not true. Okay. Yeah. So shall we move to the 2.2 category in case it is done?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. Here. So object.keys method. So there is again a method called dot keys that can be used with a kind of collection that you can think of. So what it basically returns is it returns a list. But remember that it has nothing to do with the elements of that list. What it basically provides us is basically the index. So I hope you are aware that even in Python, the indexing starts from 0, and the last index of a collection is basically the length -1. Whatever the length of that collection is -1, that would be the last index for that particular collection. In the same way, object.keys basically returns a list of all of those indexes. So since there are 5 elements in this collection or this array called A, what it will do is it is going to return us a list having 5 elements. Each of the element, or basically it is going to be a range from 0 to 4. 0 is basically the starting index, 4 is length -1. But the thing is that it basically returns elements in string. That means they won't be integer values, they won't be numbers, they would be strings. That means the first option is correct. It is going to return a list having string values ranging from 0 to 4.
All keys will be in a string format. Correct.
Yeah. What will be the output of following JavaScript program? So, okay, dot values is again, it returns a list of all of the elements that are available in the collection. So it is going to be straightforward. You will be just getting whatever is being written at line number 1 of this program. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in a list. The second option. Oh, sorry, fourth option. Yeah, it is 0. So entries. So what entries basically does is it returns a nested list. That means list inside list, where each list, the first element of the nested list represents the index of the character. The second element in that list, it represents the value at that particular index. So if we talk about this array, it is going to return us a list having 3 lists inside it. The first list will have 2 elements. One is going to be the index. So the index will start from 0, but remember it will be a string. The second element of that nested string would be a number called 1. So basically the answer for that question is going to be second option.
So here every key value pair is like an array, no? This is
every key value pair is basically a list. Yes.
Array.
Sorry, array in JavaScript. Yes. Okay. So which of the following is the correct length of the array A after the execution of the program written below? So if there are 5 elements that we have initialized this array with, and later we try to change the value of this array to 9. So what do you think? What will be?
So it will change to 9.
Holes are occupied at the next position.
Correct. So there is something known as holes in JavaScript arrays. So what happens is that in case you want to change the length, and there are some elements that won't be occupied after changing the length, so those places will be known as, or will be called as, holes. So if we talk about this array, the length, the original length was 5, but after executing line number 2, the length has become 9. So that means there will be 4 holes, or 4 holes will be created inside this array called A. So the question asks that what will be the length? So it will be 9. I guess the next question will ask about the number of holes. So I hope you all can answer. 9 minus 5, there will be 4 holes. Number of holes. Yeah, same question. Okay. Okay, so next question is about the spreading operator. So what happens is, in case you have a collection and you want to use that collection inside another collection, or in some other way, but what you want is, you do not want that collection to be treated as a collection. You want each and every value of that iterable or that collection to be treated as separate. So what you do is, you basically use spreading operator. So now, the way this B array or this B collection would be created is that A want to be replaced with its original value. What will it do is, it will basically destructure all of these elements, that is 2, 3, 4, and they will act as individual elements inside this array called B. So if we talk about that, without A, the length of that array of the array B is 3, 1, 2, 5. But if we talk about the spreading operator, so what it will do is, it will put 2, 3, and 4 as it is here after 2. So the length would become 1, 2, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that means the length would become 6, and the answer would be second. So 1 and 2 are already present here. So if you will spread A, 2 will again come. So there will be 2 occurrences of 2, and 3, 4, 5. Yes. So if I would not have put these 3 dots here, I would not have spreaded this the way it is happening right now, then the output would have been this third option. But since we are using spreading operator, that's why the output has changed to the second option. So yeah, I'll just click on check answers. Okay. Any doubts? Any questions so far?
So can you explain the last one? Like,
What happens is that whenever you use the spreading operator, what it does is, it doesn't put the collection as it is. For example, if I would have done it without using these 3 dots, remember spreading operator requires, or spreading operators is basically known as 3 dots, 3 continuous dots without any space. If I wouldn't have used these 3 dots here, and let's say I would be using simple A, what it would have done is, it would have created a list inside list kind of structure, right? It would have simply replaced this A with the actual value of it, with the original value of it, that is a list itself, or sorry, that is an array itself, that is 2, 3, 4.
Oh, basically it has extended. Like in Python, we used to use extend.
Correct. Yeah, just the way extend method works in Python list.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. Contents of A will be replaced at position where is specified. Okay. Yeah, so this is how it works. So okay, we have already clicked on check answers. So yeah, shall we move to the next category if all of you are okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thanks. Yeah. Which of the following shows the correct output if the program written below is executed? I'm not sure that if you have basically studied about map function. So again, we discussed about callbacks, and I would like to say that map itself is basically, I would say, a callback kind of thing. It represents callback behavior, because what we are doing is, map is a method, or we can say is a function, which is accepting another function, right? So the way it is providing us the callback like behavior is that we are able to pass another function as a parameter, right? And as you can see, that func is basically a different function that we have defined somewhere in a program. So it is showing us a callback kind of functionality. Does anyone has any question? Sorry, can you just repeat?
I think option 1 should be correct.
Yeah, option 1. Okay, so how the answer is going to be computed, let's just try to give you an idea. What happens is that whatever collection that you have used this map function with, or this map method with, it will basically iterate over each and every element of that collection, and it is going to pass that element to the function that you have passed here as an argument to this map. So what will happen is, it will take the first element of this collection called 5. It will pass this 5 to this function called func. It is going to return you what? X modulo division 2. So 1 modulo division 2, what's the answer? It's going to be 1, right? Because if you will try to divide 1 by 2, you are going to get the remainder as 1. sorry, you are going to get the reminder yes one. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, since you are going this function is going to return 1 here. This is what it is going to return as a value. So what it will do is it will basically create a list itself, and it is going to put all of the elements accordingly. For example, if the condition is true, so it is going to put 1 there, or whatever the value it returns. Basically, it is, since we are just returning here, we are not putting any condition, so it is just going to put that value as at the place.
Sir, is this similar to like Python?
Correct.
Also had
Exactly.
this thing, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, sir.
So yeah, if we talk 5, 15, 25, 35, 45, I guess all of these elements are odd. So if we will try to do the modular division of all of these elements with 2, you are going to get 1 every. Right. So that's why the answer would be 1. There is no surprise here. Okay. So question 2, which of the following shows the correct output if the program is executed? So A is basically a collection, an array, which is having 3 elements, 1, 2, 3. In the next line, we are trying to use some kind of destructuring. But the way we are using here is okay, you might have done it in Python as well, but this kind of syntax would have resulted you in an error, because if you will try to unpack a list having 3 elements with just 2 variables, you are going to get an error. But in JavaScript, it works a bit differently. So what happens is that this is an array or a collection 1, 2, 3. On the left hand side, you have 2 variables B and C that are also put inside an array. So the first value in this collection called A will be assigned to variable B. The second value in this collection A will be assigned to variable C. The last value, or whatever values or next values that are available in the collection, that is on the right hand side of this assignment operator. Right? Those values would be ignored. They will be simply ignored. So what will happen is that B will get the value 1, C will get the value 2. So if you will trying to print the value of C, you are going to get 2 here. Is this okay? Is this clear?
So 3 will be ignored.
Yes, 3 will be ignored.
Okay.
If you would have one more variable here, let's say after C, you would have utilized that value.
Sir, what if A contained only 1 element?
If A contains only 1 element, there is a chance that basically you can get undefined in C. I'm not sure. Basically, you can try that.
Okay.
Or you could get an error as well. Both of these things are possible. Yeah, you can try that. So which of the following shows the correct output? I guess something has been changed from the previous question. Okay. So what has happened is that we have not put those what I say square brackets, around B and C. So would anyone like to guess that
That's an
what
error.
are going to be the implications?
Error, sir. Reference error.
Okay, why an error? Can anyone explain the reason?
So the destructuring requires to be specified as an array. Square brackets are missing for that definition at the second line.
Okay, but what is basically causing the error? Okay, that's okay. Let's say we are trying to do some different kind of experiments. But
So
what
here-
actually is causing the error key?
Destructuring is possible because on either side there should be array. Here B and C are not array. A is array data type, and B and C are.
Let me just
that
try
is-
to put it here. It would be easier for you to understand that what is causing the problem.
Sir, is it regarding that the type is not defined?
Yeah, type is not matching.
Just a minute. Sorry, what did you say?
So that the
Type
type is not
mismatch.
defined.
No. Let me tell you. So see, if I click on run, just focus on the error that we'll get here. So the error is saying that B is not defined. So can you interpret something that B is not defined, but it has to do with this kind of error or with the program that we have written here? What is happening?
Yeah, we have initialized C, but we have not defined like what type is B. If we could have initialized B, then this error would not have occurred, I would say. Probably.
Okay, so what is happening here is that we are basically using two operators in this state. Sorry.
Is it like it is taking two different declaration statement?
Yeah, let me come on to that.
One is.
So what is happening here is we are basically using two operators. If we talk about line number 5, one operator is comma operator. The other operator is this assignment operator, this equals to operator. Does anybody of you know that which has the higher precedence? Is it comma operator or equals to, even I'm not sure. So I would just like to browse it once. Okay. Okay, here it is. So as you can see that the comma is listed at the bottom. That means comma is having the least precedence. And where is assignment? So assignment is just next to that. That means comma will be having less precedence. So what will happen is that since comma is having less precedence, this is basically going to form an expression. Right? C equals to A will form an expression and B will be a separate expression here. Right? Since comma is having the less precedence than equals. Now, what will happen when JavaScript engine will look at this line? Of course, you know that the associativity or the way JavaScript engine works is it tries to execute the program or it tries to execute the statement from left to right. So what it will do is it is going to consider two separate expressions in this statement. That is C equals to A. This is one expression. The other expression is B. And now when the JavaScript engine will read this line, it will first read this B. So what is B here? B is nothing in our program, right? So since B is nothing in a program, it is giving us error B is not defined.
If we write let B or where B,
yes, if B is available in the current scope, so it would not give us this error. If I'll click on run, it would just work fine, right? Because what will happen is C equals to A will be an expression. Whatever the value of A is will be assigned to C as it is, and since B is a variable that is defined in the current scope that is visible to the interpreter, the interpreter will take it. Okay, yeah, it is visible here. It doesn't have any operation to be performed. It will just work simple. So this is basically the reason that you will be getting a reference error here. The reference error would be because of this B. Right? It is going to give us the error that B is not. And yeah, I would like to again come back to the previous discussion that this is not the correct way of basically destructuring. You should put what I say, those square brackets around these variables. Okay, again, we are trying to use this bragging operator. Let's see how it works. So which of the following shows the correct output if the program written below is executed? So yes, would anyone of you like to predict the answer?
Sir, possibly a reference error.
Reference error. So what will happen is C.
No. Actually,
no, it won't be a reference error.
One will,
C will take a value 2.
And C will take 2 and 3.
2 and 3, yeah.
1 second. Okay, there are no questions to check. Yeah. Yeah. So what will happen in this statement is, the moment JavaScript will come onto this line number 2, it will see that there is just one expression, right? That is this expression. Now, the way this assignment operator works is, I guess someone has even asked this question in the discussion forum. I just have responded.
Yeah, sir, it was me.
Yes, in the evening. Oh,
yes, sir.
Okay. So yeah, the way this equals to operator or this assignment operator works is the associativity of it. It works from right to left. Right. That means what will it do is it will say, okay, what the value of A is? It is an array. It is a collection that is having values 1, 2, 3. Now on the left hand side, it is going to assign those values. So what will happen is the first element or the first value of that collection will be assigned to the first variable that is declared inside this array. That is B. Comma, we are using spreading operator here. The reason for doing so is, if you remember the last question that I guess we had in this category itself. Yeah, in this category itself, that we were ignoring the last element, right? We just created 2 variables and we were interested in the first 2 variables of that collection. The moment we are not sure that how many variables are there in the collection and we don't want to lose any of them, what we can do is we can use the spreading operator. That means whatever the remaining variables are there in the collection that is written on the right hand side of the assignment operator, they all will be assigned to this C. But remember, this will again be an array. Okay? If we are saying that we are going to assign multiple elements to a single variable, of course, it needs to be a sequence, it needs to be a collection. So that is why if we try to print the value of C, it would be 2 and 3, since 1 will already be assigned to a variable called B. So that is why the value of C would be 2, 3 here inside an array. Is that clear?
Clear,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yeah. So what will be the output of the following program? So we are creating an array. It is an empty array. We try to put the value 0 and 1. Okay. We try to put some values at some indexes, let's say at 0 and 1. That means the indexes 2, 3, and 4, they are still empty. You created one more array called Y, and then you started iterating over that array called X. And okay. All right. So I hope you understand that there is a difference between in and off operator here, right? When we use it with for. So what in does is it basically iterates over the indexes. But if we talk about off, it basically iterates over the values that are present at those indexes. So in case that there are some holes present inside an array, if we are using in, it will not look at those. It will not consider those elements. So what it will do is it will only push the indexes of those elements which are having some values, which are not holes. Okay. So since we know that there are just 2 elements inside this array, which are actually holding some values that are indexes 0 and 1, the other 2 or the other 3 indexes are basically holes. So you can expect that the length of this array would be what it should be.
2.
It should be 2.
It should be 2. Correct. Yeah. The rest 3 are the holes.
Sir, I have a doubt here.
Yes.
Plenty of means in a video lecture, plenty of example are given in this in and off, but they took there as a const r.
Yes.
Instead of const r, let var also will work, or that the concept of accessing values and the keys.
Yeah, of course.
Is only related with
const with let as well. I guess the question should be something like that. Why const works that way and why const doesn't work that way. There might be some questions. So yeah, means I'll try to address that question if I can get the specific context or the exact context. Can you just present an example?
So here in case I've seen that const, if it is immutable, you cannot change it. If we declare it as a variable, say const x is equal to 10, later I try to change the value of x, it is not going to change. But within for loop, if I write const I in x, then it is going to access all the values of x. How is it possible?
Sorry, I lost your last statement. Can you just repeat the last one?
In for statement within a bracket, if I write const I in x, so that will access all the index values of x. Okay, means so I is able to take different values. Correct, how this is possible in case of for, and why it is not possible in case of normal declaration of a variable that is const x is equal to 3, and later I try to change
so
x
what
to
happens
some
is
value.
that that is where the whole purpose of this lat and const variable comes in. So as you know that they are basically block scoped variables. That means for each iteration, a copy of that variable is created. Let me repeat my last statement. A copy of that variable is basically created for each iteration. That means if you're iterating over this array for the first time, that is for the index 0, a copy of this I would be created. The so next moment it comes on to the next element, a different copy of that element would be created. So that's why you are not changing the references of the variables that are declared using const. You are just using separate copies of that. You are just using different copies. So that's why you are able to use this. But in case you will use, let's say const variable inside a normal for, which is having 3 parts. One is the initialization, the other one is the condition, the other one is what I say, the increment or decrement part. For example, this right here, const I equals to 0, say I less than 5, and then I plus plus. So you are going to get an error here in this case. The reason is that, okay, I understand that, there will be different scopes or there will be different copies of this variable that would be created. But what happens? You are trying to change the value of the variable inside the same scope itself. For example, if you iterate over it for the first time, you say that I is created, the value of it is 0, you execute this function body, that is okay. But what happens when it will come again and will say, okay, the value has to be implemented. Even if it has created a new copy, let's say the new copy is I equals to 0, It's a new copy. But the moment you try to do I plus plus, that means it is trying to change the value of a constant variable. So it would straight away give you an error. So if I click on run, so it is going to give you an error that you cannot basically alter the values of the variables that are declared using const. But at the same time, if you are using such syntax, syntax like this, and here if this I is basically of type const, you can use it as long as you are not trying to change the value of that variable inside the function body. What I mean is, like, let's say you declared this variable I using const, and you try to change the value of I inside this body. Let's say I plus. Again, you are going to get the same error that you cannot make an assignment to a constant variable.
So you said that there are copies of this I will be created. Does that mean that in temporal dead zone, different memory location every time will be created, or it will point to the same memory location?
Yeah, it will point to some different location.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay. But what happens with the previous? What happens with the previous object created? Is it like a garbage there?
So of course, JavaScript has a garbage collector, and it is basically invoked whenever it is needed.
Okay, sir. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, sir.
There was someone who raised hand. Yeah, Bhavya.
So, sir, for if I try to run const I in a for loop, then it won't work because I'm trying to update the value.
Which type of for loop? Because in this example also,
like the one which you just wrote in the browser.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
That won't work. But for instance, here, if I write for const I in X, would that work? Because I'm not changing its value inside, but it is moving over the object itself.
Exactly. It will work. Yes.
Okay, sir. So, sir, is there any way to distinguish as in which case it will move, which case it won't move?
Move means?
I mean, in which case would const be allowed to iterate over something, and in which case it won't work?
Okay, see, you just need to keep the fundamental in your mind, right? The fundamental concept that a constant variable, the reference of a constant variable, it cannot be changed. That's it. And the other thing that you need to keep in your mind is that const is basically a block scope based variable. So what happens is that in for loop, whenever one iteration happens, for each iteration a new scope is created, right? Because we are using these parentheses. So for each iteration, as you know that whenever we get into the increment or decremental part, the same body or the same set of instructions that are written inside that for loop body are executed again. So it is basically all of those statements are basically getting executed in a different scope. Now, since it's a different scope, as long as the value of the const variable has not been changed inside the function body, you can use them without any errors.
Got it, sir. Thank you.
And sir, what would be the answer of this if it was op?
Sorry.
Like for I of x.
Hmm.
So what would be the answer? Y dot length.
What will be the answer if?
If the for I of x.
So what he's trying to say is, instead of pen,
Yes.
if there was off, what would be the output of this whole code?
The values will be different.
Okay. In case of off, yeah, definitely. Right now, it is basically pushing 0 and 1. In case of off, it would have pushed 1 and 3.
And undefined, like 3
undefined. Okay. There would be undefined as well. Yeah. If you are using off, so there will be 3 undefined values. Yes, correct.
Okay, so it will be 5, right? Length.
I'm not sure if I have already answered a graded question. Let me just check once. Okay, all right. Yeah, this is correct. No issue. Yeah. So what your question was that if you are using off here, so what happens is it basically doesn't iterate over the indexes, it iterates over the values. The values will be taken and they will be taken as undefined in place of hooks.
Yes.
So that means if you are using off here, the length of this array y, it won't be 2, it will be 5, where 2 elements would be 1 and 3, the other 3 elements would be undefined.
Okay, and one small thing that here we have not specified the type of I, like const or let.
So by default, it would be var.
Okay, fine. Okay. Got it. Thank you.
So if there are some holes, all those holes will be having undefined as a value.
Yes.
And undefined is a valid value, means as you said that it will be added to the y.
Yes, correct. So you will be getting 3 undefined values in the array
1. Okay. Yes. Thank you.
But again, I would like to mention one thing, that it's not a good practice that if you leave the variables as it is, as I said, that by default it would automatically take var as the declaring keyword. So you should try to use let and const as much as possible. The highest priority should be to use const. The second priority to use let in case you are not able to work with const. I won't even suggest using the var keyword in your program. Okay. Yeah. So is that okay? Shall we move to the next set of questions?
Sir, one small question
Yeah.
on the same. So, can you scroll a bit up?
Mhm.
Is there in the new declaration in the first line of fifth question?
Fifth question.
Question
Yeah.
number 5. Yes, sir. The x equal new array 5. This is one declaration, and another declaration may be x equal empty list, and then x dot length equal 5. So, is there any
correct.
difference between these two types of declaration?
Okay. So right now, I don't think there is any difference. In that case, you are
Like
basically using a class.
in terms of creation in object.
Okay. So there is basically a simple difference that there is a concept called static memory allocation and dynamic memory allocation. So with the help of new, we'll basically achieve the concept of dynamic memory allocation. That means that the memory is allocated during the execution of the program.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if you have studied languages like C, C++, maybe you would be able to understand this concept better than. The moment we use keyword new, it is used to dynamically allocate the memory.
Okay, and in case of empty list and then changing the length, that will be static.
Yes.
Okay. Got it, sir.
Well, didn't we tick on the answers? I guess we did so. Okay, B and C, so it is going to be 2. C is going to be reference error. C is going to be 2, 3. Y dot length is going to be 2. Okay, yeah. So shall we move to the next category?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thanks. Okay. So which of the following shows the correct output if the program written below is executed? So what we are doing is we are defining an object called A, which is having certain values, some key value pairs, A, B, C. C is basically a function. B, what we are doing is we are making use of this proto. What it basically does is it inherits all of the properties of object A in itself. And there is one more property that you are defining specific to B. So what will happen if you will try to print the value of B dot length and B dot C? That means you are trying to execute a function called C using the reference as B. So yes, would you like to guess the answer? Anyone? Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. You're audible.
Okay, all right. I guess there was a complete silence. Well, so let me just try to tell you what is happening here is the moment you write this proto here, that means this B object has the access to all of the key value pairs or all of the properties or elements of this object called A. That means you can call A from B, you can call B from B, you can call C from B. That means B dot A is valid, B dot B is valid, B dot C is valid, but B dot D is not valid, right? Because there is nothing like D, so you will get undefined in that case. Okay. So now what happens is you firstly try to print the value of B dot length. Before that, I would like to focus on this B dot C, and then basically 2 round brackets that are used to call a function. So as I said, that since all of the properties of this object A are now inherited by object B, so you can easily call this C function using B as the reference. So B dot C, it is definitely going to execute this function. And what this function does is it returns hello. And since it is returning inside a console.log statement, it just dumps it onto the console, right? So that means the second value that will be printed on the console is going to be hello for sure. So now we have three choices. That means this choice is eliminated. The third choice, we have three choices left with us: first, second, and fourth. Would any one of you like to answer that what the value of b.length would be?
Sir, by looking at the options, I should say the first option should be the correct one.
Correct, because len is basically a function that can be used, or that can be used for what I say, arrays, like for collections. Right now, this a is basically an object; it is not a collection. Okay, so that's why len will be treated as just a simple or a normal property that you have not defined inside this object. So that's why it will be undefined. The second message will be b.c, that that is coming help.
Sir, you said here that b.a, b.b, b.c will work, but b.d will not work.
b.d is going to give you the value undefined.
But we are writing that d within the definition of b, na? That is.
Okay. Sorry, d is still here. Sorry, I thought it was not. Yeah, so it would work. So b.e and f means whatever properties are not defined, they will just give us undefined.
Okay, sorry.
I didn't notice this d here.
Sir, the B has two elements, na? So it should be, length should be 2 ideally, isn't it?
No, length is not something that is predefined for objects. It is predefined for arrays, for collections.
Okay.
You are using it with an object. If you would have used it with an array, it would have given you the number of elements that are present in that array. But right now you are using an object.
Okay.
Sir, can you repeat the reason?
Length is not predefined for objects. If you would have used it with arrays, then you would have gotten the number of elements that are present inside that particular array. But right now, this length will be treated as a normal property for this object, which is not defined, and that's why you are going to get a defined.
Okay.
Okay, so I hope I can move to the next question. So which of the following shows the correct output for this program? So it's a long program. What we are doing is, I hope the objects and classes, this is lecture 2.4. How many of you have started watching lecture 2.4 or have finished watching it?
Yeah, I have finished.
Okay, Neeraj is finished. Anyone else? Because I saw that most of you were in midway.
No, sir, up to 2.3 done.
Okay, so I'm not even sure that if we should basically look at these questions, which are involving the concepts from object-oriented programming. Okay, so is it okay if we move to the practice category and take all of the questions that belongs to the lectures or till lectures, I guess 2.3?
That would be fine, sir. Please.
Okay, I guess someone was asking a question, and here is the question to clarify that. Okay, so what it is asking is that which of these code snippets is going to give us an error? I hope most of you should be able to answer, or instead all of you should be able to answer this.
Snippet 1.
Yes.
Code snippet 1, definitely, because what is happening is you are trying to update the value of a const variable inside the same scope. That is why the error will be caused. So code snippet 1 will generate an error. Yeah, so code snippet 1. Find, has it been introduced till lecture 2.3? Find method?
Yes, sir. Yes. Done.
It is. Okay, great. So again, we have to print the output. So what happens is there is an array called A, which is having 3 elements, 2, 3, 4. You create one more array called B. You use spread operator for A. So this B array will have 1, 2, 3, 6 elements. The elements would be 2, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So what this find does is it basically returns the first element from the collection that satisfies this condition. Right? Again, this is again a callback. Right? It is accepting a function. You are passing one function here, right? So this is again an example of callback. So what happens is we start with the first element. We start iterating over the first element of this collection called B. First element is 2, so 2 modulo division 2. So it is going to return a 0. That means the condition has failed. The next element would be 2. The next element would be 2. The next element would be 3. So 3 modulo division 2. The answer would be 1. So 1 would be treated as true, and it would return us that 3 element itself, or the index that is present at element 3. 0, 1, 2, 3. Yeah. So the element that will be returned by this method find will be 3, and you will simply log that value on the console. So the answer should be 3. Is it okay?
It is returning index, not the value, right?
No, it is returning value.
So it is returning value and we are looking for true condition, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because the condition is 3 is index also and the value also.
Yeah, correct. So it is returning the value.
No, 3 is not index, no, because after placing that A,
The
index of 3 is 3 is different.
Yeah, it is also 3, but yeah, it is returning value. Okay, so which of the following shows the correct output? So have you seen the lecture still object destructuring? Yeah, I guess we talked about a few of these in the previous set of questions. Yeah, so what we have is we have an object here. Okay, this is also something related to modularity. It's okay, fine. So we have an object called A. We have defined certain properties in this object, first name, age, and place. What we are doing is we are trying to create basically an alias for one of the properties that are available in this object. So what we do is we say that we want to get first name from an object called A, and we want to alias that property called first name as ALT in the current namespace or in the current scope. That means if you will use this ALT variable anywhere in this program or in this scope, so you are going to get the value of the first name inside this object A, that is up. But the moment you use this kind of syntax, this first name itself, it becomes invalid. That means you cannot use it as an identifier inside the current scope because you have created an alias for this first name, which is ALT. If you would not have written this, colon and ALT, then it would itself have been an alias. But right now the alias is ALT, and that's why you cannot use first name. So if you will try to use this first name, what you should get. So first name is basically an variable that is not defined in the current scope. What should be the output?
It should be Abhi.
Sorry?
First name is getting replaced by ALT.
Yes.
So
the first name, which is having value Abhi. So this identifier first name now is going to be called as ALT. You cannot use first name anymore.
The answer should be reference error probably.
Correct. It should be a reference error because first name is not present inside the current set. That's right.
Sorry, sir, it's not clear. Sir, here object A is created with 3 keys and 3 values, right?
Yeah, correct.
So when we write let first name colon alt, that is what it is creating an alias. So correct. The first key is replaced with ALT colon Abhi now. Is that? Is this first underscore name key is
what you are doing is you are trying to extract a property from the object. So you are trying to extract a property here.
I wanted to understand whether this replacement happens really or not. Means in the place of first underscore name as a first key in object A, does that get replaced by ALT actually or not?
No.
No.
You are just talking about the current namespace. Current namespace.
So there is no.
If you want to access first name using this object A, you still have to write A.first name.
Okay. So will that get changed in object A? That I wanted to know.
No.
Like creating an alias is not having any impact on original object.
Correct.
Is that true? Okay.
Yes. Yeah. It is just going to affect the current namespace. Yeah. Just going to
when
add
when I say let first name colon ALT is equal to A. So again, as I'm using let here, so in dead memory zone, it is going to create one reference for that. It will be completely different, but it will try to point to the same object. Is it?
No, you are not pointing to the object.
Pointing is the property which this Abhi name is the first name. It is extracting that property.
Yeah. So what it does is it just copies this value Abhi and it assigns it to this variable called ALT.
Okay. So if I write console.log ALT, then I will be able to print Abhi over there.
You should be able to get Abhi. Yes.
Okay, clear, sir.
So function 4, we are using for loop here. So there is an array which is having 1, 2, 3, 4 elements. ITM online, which is a string. 2 is Boolean. Please note that the first letter of this Boolean value is basically in lowercase. That is different from Python. Python, it used to be in uppercase, true and false. The third value is 3, which is a number. The fourth value is a function. It's an arrow function. So result, we have created an array here. What happens is that for I equals to 0, I less than here. Then so what you are basically doing is you are trying to push. We are using a keyword called type of. So what type of basically does is it returns us the type of the element that you specify right after that. So arr I, what it is going to give us is, so I is going to represent the index. Since we are going to iterate over this array arr, is going to represent the index I, and arr I is going to represent the value at that particular index. So what we are interested in here is the type of each of the elements that are present inside this array. So as you can see, the first element is IITM online. It clearly looks like a string. Second value is a Boolean. Third value is a number. Fourth value is a function. So string, Boolean, number, function. Yeah, first should be the correct answer. Is that okay?
Yes, sir.
So this also looks something similar, but what is the difference? Okay, so the results.push statement is different. So what we are doing here is, instead of printing the type of it, we are trying to push basically the square of that element. We are just multiplying the same thing again with itself. So we are trying to push the square of. So I hope you understand that this asterisk, this is basically multiplication operator. Of course, it is valid with numbers. It works with strings as well. In case string can be converted into numbers, it also gives us the result for that. In case one is string, the other one is a number, it also gives us the result for that. But in case both of these are string, then of course you are not going to get the correct output. Or so basically it doesn't generate an error. What it does is it returns a special value called NaN, which stands for not a number. In case it is not able to perform any operations that you have asked it to do, it is going to return NaN. It means the operation that you are trying to perform, that can only be done on numbers, and the provided variables or the values are not numbers.
So here, if IITM online is replaced with say 4, string 4, so that will give result as a 16.
So if instead of IITM online, if you have
just number 4 in single quotes,
yes,
then
you
that
should
will
get
become
16 in that case. Yes.
Yeah.
So if we talk about IITM online, multiply IITM online, definitely it is going to be NaN. So the other 3 options are eliminated. Okay, I would not say the fourth one. The third option is eliminated. True. So as you know that JavaScript does a lot of coercion in itself, does a lot of implicit coercion. So the Boolean values can of course be converted into integers. The true values can be converted to 1, false can be converted to 0. So true will be converted to 1, and 1 into 1 will basically result as 1. It is going to return as 1. So NaN1. So I guess the second option is correct. There is no other. Okay, it could be none of the above as well. So 3 into 3 is going to be 9, and this is a function. So again, it is going to, yeah. So second option is correct.
Yes, sir.
Is that okay to everyone?
Sir, regarding
Yes, sir.
the function is returning an integer. Like it could be returning an integer.
You are not talking about what this function is returning. You are not invoking that function.
Okay.
But as he said, sir, if we write 2, 3, giving 2 plus 3, then
sorry.
Suppose we replace this A, B, A and B with 2 and 3. A with 2 and B with 3. Suppose we write it like this.
Okay.
So again, it will give NaN.
Basically, we'll have to check that if this kind of syntax is valid in JavaScript or not. Not sure. Let me see. So if what you are saying is you simply write 2, 3 and
is giving generating 2 plus 3.
No, let's say 2 plus 3. This is valid. Okay, this is not a valid.
Unexpected number. Okay, sir. So that will definitely generate NaN.
Correct. It will be an error.
Error. Sorry.
Okay, so what we are doing here is this is also related to the objects. Yeah, like we can discuss about it. So what is happening is we have an object called food, which is having 2 properties, name and color. Name is having value apple, color is having value red. We have a variable called description. So I guess this is not a variable, it is a function. Yeah. So this is the function. an arrow function, which is accepting an object. What properties it is going to accept from the object: name, color, and in case you don't provide shape, the default value is going to be spherical. So what it does is it basically prints. So this is how you basically do string formatting in JavaScript by using these backstreaks and using dollar symbols and curly braces. You put the variable names in. So what you are doing is you are calling this description with an argument called fruit. So what is fruit? Fruit is an object. So fruit will go here in this argument. If we talk about what it is going to do is it is going to extract name from this fruit, which is going to be apple. The color is going to be red, and shape, since not provided, it is going to be assumed as spherical. So what will it print is name is apple, is red and spherical. So apple is red and spherical. Yep. So what this question is asking is what will be the output? Yeah. So apple is red and spherical. Yeah, fourth option.
Sir, here the argument, is it required to pass inside the curly bracket?
This fruit?
That name, color, and shape.
Yes, correct. Because you are basically passing an object here. You are not passing separate values.
Okay.
In case of backquotes, when we are dealing with an object, curly brackets are needed.
Yes. I got it. Yeah.
Okay. Next question. Okay. So again, there are some classes. I guess they are introduced in later lectures of this week. Okay. So 7. All right. So I would not like to move forward from here. So the lecture categories or the activity question categories from lecture 2.4 onwards and question number 7 onwards in practice category, they are still pending, and it would be really great if you all can watch the videos and try to solve these questions. You can post your queries, of course, on the discourse. We'll be able to help you. And yeah, in case you are still having any difficulties, yeah, you can of course come in the live sessions and can ask your queries. Right? So yeah, the reason I don't want to move forward is that majority of you have not finished watching the lectures for the week 2. So that's why there is no point going forward, I guess. Okay. Yeah, so there is one more programming assignment for week 2 as well. So it is cafe management problem. I hope you will really enjoy solving this problem. So this is going to cover various concepts from JavaScript. Of course, objects a lot. You are going to get a fair understanding of objects if you are able to solve this programming assignment. You will be able to use functions like find. You will be able to use functions like filter and all. So yeah, you must try this programming assignment. It is really interesting. So yeah, you have to basically implement or write the definitions for 3 methods: buy product, return product, and get current balance. Get current balance, of course, it's going to be the easiest one. But yeah, buy product and return product, I guess these 2 are the function definitions that you will really enjoy writing. Okay, yeah. So are there any questions?
No, sir.
Sir, in Mat 2, will there be assignments like Mat 1, like where we have to upload in the files?
No, there won't be any graded assignments as such. But as I hope you have seen that what used to happen in Mat 1 courses that we used to provide you a long or a detailed problem statement for which you need to write the solution. You were supposed to write the solution for. So in Mat 2, we won't be doing the same. What we'll be doing here is we will be just giving you an overall idea. We will be giving you some programming assignments for each week, or you can also call them practical assignments, but they won't be as detailed as you used to get in Mat 1. The reason was that in Mat 1, there used to be some automated test cases. So that's why we need to be more precise with the explanation or with the requirements that we want you guys to implement. But this time, since there is no component of it in your final score for this course, we will be releasing some of the open-ended programming assignments, or we can say practical assignments. So from week 3 onwards, we are going to introduce the JavaScript reactive framework Vue.js. Okay, so for week 2, yeah, the content will be released on Friday, so yeah, you will get to know about it.
Okay.
But yeah, I would strongly recommend all of you to work on those practical problem statements that we'll be providing for each week. Since they are not graded, of course, it won't contribute to your final grade in any sense. But yes, it would be really good for your practice. Okay, so if there are no more questions, let me stop my share.
Sir, are you going to provide the solution for those assignments later?
Well, we can discuss those in the live sessions in case you want to.
Maybe at the end of the course, if possible. The ideal solution that you will be having, so that we'll be able to compare, not in the course, but after the course, as it gets over, the final exam gets over, if you can release.
Okay, yeah, that can be done.
If possible. Not right now within the course, but later it will be definitely helpful. We can compare and we can improve.
Okay, but yeah, as I have mentioned that these are going to be open-ended assignments. So of course, there is just not a single way that you can solve that problem with. There are going to be many other ways through which you can get the same result. So
sure.
Of course, this was the reason for not providing the solutions for lab assignments even for a Med 1 course. The reason was the same, that there is no unique solution basically.
Okay, sir. At least discussion for some of the
yeah, definitely means, yeah, as I said, we can definitely discuss those during the live sessions. Yes.
Sure, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Good night, sir.
Yeah. Hi. Yeah, Bhavya.
So can we have something like some sort of weekly, some practice sessions or something for the practical components?
Yeah, actually, we are planning to have practical components, or we can say, the sessions which will basically emphasize or focus on the practical implementations of the course. So, the session that we are having on this day, that is Tuesday, we are planning to discuss the activity and practice-based questions or take any of your doubts if you have. On Saturday, we are planning to have such sessions which will be coding-like sessions, like solve with instructor kind of sessions, where we'll be coding, and yeah, you can follow along with us. Yeah, those are going to be the interesting ones.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Are there any other questions from anyone else? So if there are no more questions, I would like to formally close this session here.
Yes, sir. Good night, sir.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Chandrasekhar. Yeah. Thanks everyone for coming here, joining with us for this live session. Have a good night. So we'll meet again in the next session.